the senator didn't tell you is that my sister, so you can't go to a public school with a disability after you're 21. And for a lot of families, that creates a huge problem if that individual can't or doesn't want to work. If there are those issues. My sister couldn't work, had a lot of cognitive issues and lots of disabilities. And so Open Hands was the kind of program that my parents could rely on so that my sister could be as independent and active in her community, but have my parents, right, as that foundation for her to stay in her community. I know that it will shock you to learn that these are exactly the kinds of programs that have lost, if not all, nearly all their funding. They receive very little or no support in terms of trying to figure it out, even when we've got, a state budget that's in trouble. And there's been no investment in just helping families navigate these difficult issues. I want to talk a little bit about that, but first, I want to introduce everybody else. I want to thank Marty, you're awesome. You've done such a great job. I really appreciate everything you're doing. And I don't care that lots of candidates investing in your community makes a difference. And we are also grateful to you for years of tireless investment in all of these communities. I want to give a shout out to Senator Michael Padilla, who's back there. He's running for Lieutenant Governor. Energy, and I do a lot of running around, and I'm embarrassed to admit to you, there's one person, and only one, in the entire world that I may not be able to keep up with. It just might be Michael Padilla. And he's amazing. So you keep your eyes on Michael Padilla. He's great. And his lovely partner, Christine's right over there. She's fantastic. I think she's the reason we're so involved. We also have Councilwoman Barbara Padilla Casey. I know I've got to, there you are, back there. Education powerhouse. We have former Mayor Alfonso Ortiz. We have Representative Tomas Salazar. And he's also an incredible caregiver. And I'm so proud. New Mexicans are amazing in that regard about our families, and we're lucky. Former Councilman Morris Madrid, of course. There you are, there you are. And we've got Police Chief Juan Montaño. So I make this opening statement all the time because I think it's really important about what drove me to run for governor. Here are a couple of truths. I never thought in my wildest dreams I would get to be an elected person. I was really happy about the work I was doing in state government. I worked in the private sector, I worked for an engineering firm, I worked for higher education, I practiced law, I had a pretty diverse background. But each of us, if we're lucky, your calling interferes with whatever your life plans are. And my calling about serving older folks and persons with disabilities interfered in what I thought I would be doing as a lawyer. And how lucky am I? And I worked for 3 different governors, Bruce King, Gary Johnson, and Richardson, and finished my career in state government at the Department of Health. And I tell you this story because I thought I would go back to practicing law. And a funny thing happened to me, another calling. As the federal candidates for president, Clinton and Obama, particularly in that 2008 primary, they were debating for the first time nationally healthcare reform and making healthcare, right, a right in that debate, not a privilege. Now, this was a federal government I wanted to work in. It was a federal government I wanted to participate to make sure that rural, small, poor states didn't get left behind in that effort, in that reform. And I ran for Congress. And my dad, he's this incredible guy. I've lost him. He's been gone about 5 years. Many of you might have known my dad. He was the first public health dentist, and he was the only dentist that took care of disabled children as patients. And he did that for free for his entire career. More than 50 years that span. I believe that's my phone.
Not mine.
I can multitask. Done. Off. So, my dad was so excited about my run, and I didn't quite make it. And I thought I would do something else, and my father convinced me that once you care about serving New Mexicans, there's no retiring from that effort. And he convinced me to run for the Burlingame County Commission, which in Albuquerque, the county has a huge healthcare footprint. They fund a large part of UNMH, the hospital, and their health services, which is a statewide healthcare institution. So it's really important that that funding stay. And my dad campaigned for me tirelessly, and I was the underdog in that race, and by golly, I won it. And I loved that work. And then this seat came open again, and healthcare was still in the national debate. Affordable Care Act passed, but real issues about implementation and serious debates in Congress. So many debates that Democrats lost majority in the House, right? So I run again. Martin Heinrich runs for the Senate, I run again. My dad didn't live long enough to see me come from way behind and win that race. And I'm not here about Congress, except that. We just talked about dreamers. We just talked about healthcare. Having a relationship and experience in federal government makes a difference in starting to deal with New Mexico's challenges and really harnessing our opportunities. Because the reality is the current administration will not take nearly a single federal grant or dollar. We want all of it. We deserve every federal dollar, every state dollar, every local dollar, every private dollar. It's what we do with it. That level of investments, whether we're investing it in education, whether we're doing it in community colleges or higher education, whether we're making sure that every New Mexican has a pathway to a job or a career, those investments start by leveraging every single dollar and being very clear that no New Mexican gets left behind. And I will tell you how important that is to me and how valuable those lessons are. So I'm on my way today back from Wagon Mound. And Hector Balderas, who I'm lucky to have as a supporter, we did that parade. And during that parade, a family that I didn't recognize. Now, my family's from Romeroville, one side of my family. My great-grandfather was the largest sheep rancher in Union County. He was part of the state's original constitutional state convention to make New Mexico state in 1912. I think I might have unearthed a photo of my great-grandfather with President Taft signing that legislation in the Oval Office. All right, so these roots are important. Whether you've been here 5 minutes, I don't know how long you've been here, but here, whether you've been here 400 years, it is all of that collective wisdom and energy. And a family came up to me and said, "We're with you." And I love hearing that. But in addition, they said, "I don't think you remember us. Are you related to Kim Lujan?" Now, my sister, who's been gone a long time, her name is Kimberly. So I don't think about her as Kim Lujan, and I know Kim Lujan. And so I'm related. There's just under 2 million people here. I'm related to 1.75 million. Okay? And so does that sound a little familiar to many people here? So when they said Kim Lujan, I said, well, there's 5 tribes of Lujans. We're all related somewhere, maybe. I give him this long story, and he has this very quizzical look on his face. And he said, no, Kim Lujan at the blind school. He said, my sister, Paula, Clogier, went to that blind school, and she played with your sister. And she played with your sister, and your mom, my mom was the not the superintendent, she was the board chair, because at the time, schools were not really very productive for kids with disabilities. And to some degree, we still do that. We take these kids from their families. We're lucky to have the school in Alamogordo, but they're away from their families. It's a really harsh environment, and many of these kids aren't just blind, they have lots of other things going on. And my mother was appalled that there wasn't enough family support, that poor families around the state couldn't visit and had no way to get there. There was no way to get their kids back to the Navajo Nation or to Wagon Mound or anywhere else. And my mom started a transportation environment. Every mom in Santa Fe and northern New Mexico were driving kids every weekend all over the state until she could figure out a program that did that. And in fact, you know, the early state planes, I don't want to get into a debate about the Richardson mistake with a jet, but I do want to tell you about this. Those early planes flew those kids home on weekends. Because you take a sick kid who's also blind and you put him in a car for 11 hours. That's too long. And they're only home for a day, and then it's 11 hours back. So my mom made sure that those kids could be flown home to be with their parents as many weekends as those kids wanted to go home. And so in that moment, you know, I was reminded about the power of all of our families, about those relationships, and about a family that looked after my sister when my mom wasn't always there. And the same was true for Paula. Now, Paula's still alive. So I got to say hello to Paula while I was in Wagner. And these are the reasons I want to come home. See, most people who, and I mean no disrespect by this, governors need really good experience. Working and building your state, particularly when we have the challenges that we have today, is hard work. It's not easy. And so you get great experience, and you become a U.S. Senator, and you become a Vice President, and you become a President. But you know what? New Mexico's had lots of that. New Mexico deserves someone who's leaving Washington to come home. All right? That focus is right here. And that focus is about making sure that we're really driving the state's economic agenda. That economic agenda in and of itself will make a difference on every single issue that you worry about, that I worry about, every single day in this state. And I want an economic agenda that drives Wagner and drives Las Vegas. And while I don't want to diminish the ability and the opportunities on the I-25 corridor, the wealth and backbone of this state is in its rural communities. And the fact that we have forgotten in this administration about those investments is outrageous. And if we put them back in short order, all of our kids have real opportunities for success. And here's a couple quick things, and then I'm going to be quiet and take some questions. Here are a couple of things that we can do immediately, and I hear about it all over the state. Do you hear this? Colorado, Arizona, Nevada, Texas. Why are they doing so well and we aren't? Well, here's one reason. They have all your money. All right? This administration spends between $400 and $500 million every single year in out-of-state contracts. Think about the power of some of that here in Vegas. See some friends of mine. Think about the startup opportunity. Why isn't New Mexico the startup state? We've got someone right here in the audience who's probably got more patents than anyone I'll ever meet in my lifetime. Startup state. All of these are investments that stay here, that build New Mexico companies, that give New Mexicans the chance to succeed, that no matter where you are, those opportunities exist, including infrastructure spending. And I think we should do it in these sectors, and I'm going to miss some, but we should be doing aerospace and cybersecurity and tech transfer and tech startup and green energy. We've got all kinds of rural New Mexicans with great land opportunities who can be engaged, right, and selling solar and wind and geothermal energy all over the state. And guess what? Do you ever hear that, gosh, no state can really get it right because you can't store the energy and that's really complicated and we haven't quite figured that out and you need a battery and we have to produce lithium and Tesla took it all and we didn't get Tesla so that's never going to work and gosh, you can't get it to the grids and the grids, I don't know where they are. It's all, I don't know, but apparently no one can do it. False. You know the major grids for the entire United States are in Clovis. This is where they come together. If any state in the nation can export energy, and guess who wants it? Guess who's begging for New Mexico to be successful? California. Because they need our energy. They cannot produce enough. They're looking to buy it. So why wouldn't we put ourselves in a position to sell it? And why don't we think about all of the jobs that can be produced right here? And what if our community colleges were really clear about what those solar jobs, just as one example, not the only example, just one, look like? So we're training all these young people for really incredible jobs and careers where they're starting and their expertise and their innovation could all be patentable. And they're building a sustainable, green, clean economy for New Mexico. Why wouldn't we invest our money there? We can succeed, and most of the technology in storing, particularly solar, in a meaningful way, is happening at San Diego Labs. Right now, they're leading the country. It's all right here. And the last thing I want to tell you, this community is rich We have, I drive here, I tell you, I feel a lot better driving from Albuquerque to Las Vegas than I feel from driving from my apartment in DC down to the Capitol. All right? This is beautiful country with beautiful people. People want to come here. We have real opportunities. We have 3 World Heritage Sites. There's only 1,027 in the entire world. No state has 3. New Mexico has 2 that are being considered. People, we can drive them. We can drive tourists right here looking at all these incredible sites around the state in ways that we could do much better than we currently are. And I know this will be no surprise to you. The state doesn't do its asset management very well, which means we lose hundreds of millions of dollars. The state isn't investing all of its accounts very well, which means we lose hundreds of millions of dollars. And what that really means is that Senator Stefanik has no resources with which to address the real issues that she has the power and expertise to get done, and so does this representative. And they're desperate for a state, for leadership that recognizes the value of their work, that wants to work with you, not against you. That says we're going to build an economy that works for everyone, so that we're driving healthcare, we're driving education, and we're getting every single policymaker in the mix to make a difference for New Mexicans. So that's why I'm coming home. I hope that something I've said today will encourage you, if you were a little undecided before now, to be with Michelle Lujan Grisham. And I hope that with those, where did that take me? New Mexico doesn't just need to catch up. New Mexico can stay ahead. We have more things going for us and more assets right at our fingertips than most states. We have one of the richest, most diverse, kindest, compassionate cultures. We have led, and I'm going to end with one more thing. I hear a lot on the campaign trail, and I'll bet our legislators do too. Well, it can't be done here. The culture in New Mexico just doesn't work. Nothing works here. Can't invest in anything. Everybody's, got their own thing, and people don't work together. Not true. And in fact, when I was at Aging, we were, I know you won't be shocked, we were last in the country for the things that they evaluate about whether or not you're running programs and have communities that are meaningful for retirees, older people. All right, so they look at taxes, they look at aging network, that's senior centers, and those nutrition and public transportation. They also look at how much money you spend to help someone stay home. Whether that's simple building ramps or meals, or whether it means some in-home caregiving. And we were last in the country. Oregon was #1. 3 years later, we beat Oregon. We were #1 in the country, which is how I had this relationship, because I had folks with the expertise like Senator Stefanik who said, this is where you put your money that makes the difference. And you know where we are today? We're last again. And the nursing homes that she was talking about, we're the only state in the country that does undercover care evaluations. The only one. Not one has been done in the last 6.5 years. In fact, the required evaluations by state law have not been done, which means we've got a very unstable, I'll be fine, environment. And I know that older people and their families are not getting the care and support they deserve. And I will tell you this, I bet no nursing home ever thought I'd ever say this. I was not the friend of nursing homes for a long, long time. There were days 25 years ago where they made a lot of money and did not do good care. But today, we've changed the rules so that they have to take really frail, very sick individuals. These are people who would also qualify to be in hospital care. I mean, they are fragile, but we don't pay them. So we actually create a disincentive for anybody to make it in that industry. You know what happens when you do that? They either can't do good work, or they choose not to do good work and stay in the business, and we don't recruit or build new providers. And this is exactly what's happened. If you ignore these issues, they will get worse, and we will all suffer. If we invest in ourselves and have a vision, sector, dynamic, regional, rural, community, economic development plan with resources that you would have available the day you took office, by making state government work, by respecting educators, by caring about kids, by respecting public employees, by respecting your knowledge, we can build the best state in the nation. And I want you to help me and join me, because I need every one of you. So thank you for your attention today. Thank you for this great food. I never say no to this show. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm on a need-to-know basis. I got a couple of questions.
You know, I'm like a lot of other people. I've lived in another state. And, you know, when I got here, I looked around and I said, well, you know, this place is laid back and that's nice. But what are y'all doing? And I don't see that there's so much potential that I see that's not being done. And you said, you know, New Mexico can stay ahead. Well, my question is, why can't we lead it?
No, you're exactly right. You said it way better than we can lead. We can lead in innovation. We can lead in technology transfer. We have 2 out of the 5 labs. Wouldn't it be great if you found out that it was going to require an act of Congress to get the labs to do more work? It's a performance measure. It's a requirement to take the technology out of the labs and then use it as a way to drive economic development. But that would be hard, right? Because Congress isn't doing much these days. I apologize to all of you for that, by the way. But guess what? You have a congresswoman, and she's standing right here, that did that. I passed that legislation for the Department of Defense. I'm going to pass that, and we talked about that last time I was here. I won it. And now I'm going to do it for the Department of Energy. We have every single opportunity. But we have had failed leadership, no vision, and in my opinion, a state administration that didn't care about your success, was more interested in her success. And no accountability and leadership, and you're going to get both. Yes, ma'am. Now I'll go to Marty Neal. I love state employees. I was a state employee.
I want to say that my family and I are supporting you because I had the opportunity to work with you when I was in the legislature, and you were with the State Agency on Aging. And I loved your passion, your energy, and your hard work, and I know that you'll do that for us again. I have a question though. The Health Council of San Miguel County receives, we went from getting $82,000 a year under previous administration, and now with Governor Martinez, we went from that to 0. We are now getting $4,800 a year. And as you know, Health Council provides a lot of volunteer work for the communities that they serve. I know our Health Council here in San Miguel County does a tremendous amount of work with the schools, with the hospital, diabetes, teen pregnancy. We address all kinds of issues, and it's very difficult to work with no money. And so we always have to go to whoever we can find that's willing to give us a few bucks here and there so we can survive. So I would like to just ask you that when you are the governor, that you will make Health Council a priority once again, so that we can continue to serve the communities that we love and continue to do good for our community.
I thank you for your leadership, and I thank you for your kind words. You're amazing. And absolutely, I believe in those councils, so we start to spend money locally, we start to have money available to us, and this will infuriate you. There were federal dollars tied to the Affordable Care Act outreach. Now, this governor did do Medicaid expansion. Thank you, New Mexico State Legislature, for making sure that that was going to happen. I mean, they owe a huge amount of gratitude. They fought those battles, they won them. I don't know that they always get the credit for that. And New Mexico is going to be in a position to lead a brand new healthcare delivery system. And we need to really think about that, because I think that Congress and this federal administration are not going to make it easy for states, particularly those who did Medicaid expansion, to do it in the current design that the federal government is going to lead it in. And health councils have money available, So we need to think about leveraging federal money, leveraging local money, and making sure we put those back together. And I'm preaching to the choir, because if you help me know what the social determinants are and aren't, we can make those investments and deal with healthcare issues before they become too costly. So that would be fantastic. You got it. All right, yes, sir. One more.
Congressman, first of all, I want to let you know that my family and my friends are all here to support you. You're on all of you, and I'm proud to be all in with Michelle Grisham for governor. So we've been friends a long time. One question that I have is pertains to early childhood education. You know, it takes us about $15,000 to take care of a child that's in early childhood. It takes us about $80,000 to deal with them once they hit the detention centers, juvenile detention facilities. And we've proven time and time again that if you take care of them in early childhood education, they don't wind up in those detention centers. So what's our plan for early childhood education? Because I know it's going to be a big issue to land office race because of the permanent fund.
Right, and it should be. And so some candidates, I think, are a little confused about. We have 4 permanent funds in the state of New Mexico. They all have very specific rules, but the Land Grant Trust Permanent Fund, which by the Constitution requires that those investments be used for education. And in addition, it already is spending money on education, which helps the legislators make sure that there's a fair funding distribution formula. But we once before, as Marty knows, we raised the interest that we were allowed to use from the fund that created dollars then, right, more dollars that we could direct education, and we did pre-K and universal kindergarten. Here's the problem. We sunsetted that money, so it was only available for 3 years, and then it was gone, which means we started and then we stopped. That actually created probably more harm than not doing it at all, which was certainly no one's intent at the time. I think we believed that we would be able to show those successes and get it moving. And then the 2008 recession occurred, and I didn't turn my phone off. And the 2008 recession occurred, and as a result, we stalled those efforts. I'm actually going to do something shocking. All right. One, I believe we need that fund available to help us do early childhood education. That part's not so shocking. $14 billion. The second part that I want you to know, but you don't get the whole $14 billion, it doesn't quite work that way, all right, is I'm going to defend the Senate. There's a lot, I think, of misconceptions about members of the Senate Finance Committee. You know, they're fiduciaries. There was a time when states did poor work with your money, and it all went away. And then you don't have the ability to deal with your required state investments, including public education. So we need to give the Senate Finance and the rest of the Senate and the House the tools to be able to manage a fluctuating formula. Because the reality is, I think the global economy isn't going to be what we are going to love. And in fact, we've got a stagnant job growth rate in the United States. Big surprise. But that's occurring. So we got to take that into consideration. I think if we give the legislative branch some, and they should, ability to look at what's in the fund and what's being spent so that they're the accountability measure, I think that we've got a better than ever environment to be able to use more of the money, and we have to do early education, community schools, school-based health centers. We have to figure out a whole new design, and we have to empower our teachers who have been vilified by this administration and not allowed to teach. They're doing only high-stakes testing, which is no longer required by the federal government. So why is your state still torturing the schools? It makes no sense. If you improve the relationship between a teacher, an educator, and that student, we will do better. And I got one last pitch for you, and then I'm going to let you go home. Or you can come to the campaign office. We don't actually have one, but we're happy to give you marching orders right now. The calls can start today. Is this. Look, if we were to invest in our high-risk families over the long haul, this is an expensive enterprise, which is why I am really motivated to get the economy right, so that there are real choices that legislators can make. Because you know what? I respect the legislature. They decide the priorities for the money. My job is to try to convince them that I might be right. So here's the deal. The economy is moving. We're doing great. What if, instead of taking a 14-year-old who's pregnant, has a baby, you know, we get them into a program, we get them a car seat, we visit them at the hospital, we do one home visit. We sign them up for WIC. We're gone. Okay, we go back when they're 2 or 3 because there's been a problem. We try to solve that problem, we leave. We go back when they're 5 or 6. We leave, we go back. By the time that child is in 3rd grade, yes, they're not reading. The family, 1 or more members are usually visiting or in still the correction system. We're in foster care, and nearly 100% of the time, the likelihood that that child will be in this situation, incarcerated, touching juvenile justice, have a drug abuse, alcohol, or related problems, high. So we create a revolving door of persistent pockets of poverty and serious social issues, largely around substance abuse. So if you were to go into these high-risk families and stay, means you've got one stable adult who's mentoring and supporting a family, but stays all the way through and mitigates this risk. This is what the scientists in public health tell me. That after 18 years, you would have the reverse. That nearly 100% of the time, you would eradicate alcoholism, drug abuse, truancy, inability to graduate, touches with juvenile justice or the correction system, teen pregnancy. You name one of the issues that we're trying to deal with today, and they get reversed. Can you imagine the power in some of our poorest communities if we dedicated money in that way and stayed the course? Because you've got a governor and a legislature and communities, and we're working together. We see the power of that effort. We're driving the economy. It's making sense. And in one generation, the issues that I know that I've struggled with in my entire public career began to disappear in the state. And now we're leading all of those efforts and issues for the entire country. Please join us. Michelle Lujan, Grisham for Governor. I thank you very much.